You know, I love to make lists as I read through the Bible. One of my favorite lists, believe it or not, in the book of Isaiah, is all the places that begin with the phrase, "What sorrow." One of my favorite ones is over in the chapter 40s, I think it's 45 or 44, where it says, "What sorrow awaits for those who argue with their Creator." What sorrow awaits those who argue with their Creator. But in our text today, chapter 31, verse 1, what sorrow awaits those who look to Egypt for help, trusting in their horses, chariots, and charioteers, and depending on the strength of human armies, instead of looking to the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. Now, brothers and sisters, you know me. I'm not anti-doctor. I'm not anti-medicine. I just, please, Luke is called the beloved physician who traveled around with the Apostle Paul. But I watched an interesting thing over a lifetime being your pastor. When we were poor and had nothing, we didn't depend on banks. We didn't depend on the hospitals. We didn't depend on the doctors. We didn't have any money to do any of that. We depended on God. Now, I'm not saying going to the hospital is wrong, and I'm not saying going to the bank and borrowing money to buy your car is wrong. Please don't stretch what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, at some point, we have to decide that we're not going to trust in human effort and human ability. We're not going to trust in our contacts. We're not going to trust in our friendships. We're going to put our trust in God. We're going to depend upon God. Now, beloved, when we're poor, forgive me, we have to depend on God. But as God has been good to you and as God has prospered you, it's very easy to lighten up in your prayer time. It's very easy to work on a problem with your friends rather than go sit down with God and you and God have a conversation about a problem because you depend on Him. In life, we must learn to completely depend upon God. Isaiah chapter 33, verses 5-6 says, "Though the Lord is very great and lives in heaven, He will make Jerusalem His home of justice and righteousness. In that day, He will be your sure foundation." He will be your sure foundation, providing a rich store of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. The fear of the Lord will be your treasure. Learn to put all of your trust in Him. Now, there's something else that came out in our text that, to be honest, I'm not sure I ever saw before. Look back to chapter 32, verses 16 through 20. "Justice will rule in the wilderness and righteousness in the fertile field. And His righteousness will bring peace. Yes, it will bring quietness and confidence forever. My people will live in safety. Quietly at home, they will be at rest. Even if the forest should be destroyed and the city torn down, the Lord will greatly bless His people." Now notice that. Even in the times of total chaos around us, we can depend on Him because the Lord will bless His people. Now again, look at that. Even if the forest should be destroyed and the city torn down, the Lord will greatly bless His people. His promises are not determined or dependent on what's happening in the economic situation around us. Now look, continue. "Wherever they plant seed, bountiful crops will spring up. Their cattle and their donkeys will graze freely." Now notice, wherever they plant seed, bountiful crops will spring up. You have to understand, your relationship with God is what makes every place you sow seed good ground. I hear so many people running around all the time. This isn't good ground. This is good ground. And we're sitting in judgment on people. We're sitting in judgment on churches. We're sitting in judgment on all kinds of things. And you don't understand. The thing that makes everything good ground for you to plant is God's blessing upon your life. So maybe lighten up a little bit about worrying about good ground and realize it is your relationship with God that makes every place you plant seed good ground.